We have some encouraging news regarding the Edmonton Oilers and their contract talks with Leon Draisaitl, amongst many other things. We have Mattias Ekholm speaking out about his superstar teammates. But before we get into all the breakdown, all of the analysis, make sure to subscribe here to Oilers Digest, as 89% of you watching these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. Make sure to join the ride here as we get into the impending news regarding the extension and many other things when it comes to contracts with the Oilers, potential trades with the Oilers to clear up cap space, and anything and everything in between. But without further ado, a dry news cycle. Of course, when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, if you've been a fan for the longest time, if you're a new fan, they've had some trouble keeping free agents, of course. Throughout the history of the team, a very short misery there. Mark Messier and Yari Curry, both getting sold out of town. Wayne Gretzky sold in 1988 to the Los Angeles Kings. And into the mid 1990s, the late 1990s to the early 2000s, they had guys like Dougie Weight, Bill Guerin, and Cujo, Curtis Joseph, and even a guy like Jason Arnott in there, but not being able to afford them. Of course, in 2007, there were the contract extension talks with Ryan Smith. Those didn't go anywhere where both sides agreed, and then of course he was traded to the New York Islanders. So there's been some history regarding the Oiler fans being very anxious when it comes to free agents. But with Leon Draisaitl, Bob Stauffer says to not worry. He says it's going to be a 7 or 8 year deal. Of course, he said that on his Oilers Now radio show on 630 Ched. Said it's probably going to be an 8-year deal realistically. The reality is that for the Edmonton Oilers organization, for the success of the Oilers, the success of the team, the two biggest things they need to do in the next 2 years is get extensions done with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, and also add onto that with Bob an extension for Evan Bouchard. Of course, that's not lost on Stan Bowman, who of course took over the GM chair in Edmonton, and he re-signed both Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews to 8-year deals at $10.5 million. Of course, he has sort of experience extending superstar duos. And it is my belief that we are probably looking at an 8-year deal for Leon. And if I was representing Leon, I would want an 8-year deal for a 29-year-old player. And you can see here after he signed his second contract in the summer of 2017, he kind of popped off, and you can see all the stats there. Just a meteoric rise year by year after 2017. Of course, 2018 still a little bit of down year, but soon came into his own, and then just took over that dynamite finisher on the Oilers power play. Not just that, but in the playoffs as well too. He's been phenomenal. Possibly the Edmonton Oilers, over the last 3 or 4 seasons in the playoffs, he's been their best playoff performer, and he's been making a bargain the last 7 years there. Stauffer's been saying with increasing certainty for a few weeks now that Draisaitl will likely sign a new contract with the Oilers, but this is the most certain he's been, coming right out and saying he's talked to Mike Lewitt, who is Liu, I should say, Leon's agent, and giving a specific term on a new contract. And adding on here, if you look at the third contract of similar NHL star forwards, we'll get into that chart in a bit. You see the average term is 8 years, with the players taking on average about 15% of the cap. If Leon Draisaitl were to do that, he would earn about $13.2 million per season. And if he takes lower than that amount, essentially accepting a Stanley Cup discount to play in Edmonton and compete for the Cup here, that will be a major coup for the team. You can see here, between the second and third contracts for, multiple NHL players, they've taken up a significant portion of a cap percentage there. You got guys like Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Toews, Kane, Malkin and Crosby, sort of outliers here, as they did take a little bit of a discount for the Pittsburgh Penguins to keep that, that cup-winning team together. Of course, they sort of mortgage the future, and they don't really have much of a prospect pool on the way. But I mean, that does help the Oilers' case, of keeping star players together. Of course, with Stan Bowman, he's got experience doing that. And then you can see there in the bottom portion of the graph there, you can see scenarios for Draisaitl when it comes to the number, the term, and the percentage of cap. You can see the lowest scenario there, making a little over 11.4, which I mean would just be a steal for the Oilers. Is it likely to happen? I don't think so. And then you can see the middle scenario, which I think is the most likely to happen, a little over 13 million, 13.2 to be exact. He'd only be taking up 15% of the cap, and of course the high scenario and high scenarios, I don't think those will happen, but it's sort of just to gauge the distance there when it comes to the potential of Draisaitl's extension. I mean, any GM would pay They just hand Leon a blank check here. But for the Oilers, of course, they keep the core of the team together. Of course, for Leon, Connor, and Evan Bouchard, he'd probably want to take a discount there. And of course, the salary cap for the season will be $88 million in 2025-26 when Draisaitl's extension will kick in. It should be in the $93 million range. Of course, the league has had problems with the salary cap, going up. There was the pandemic issue with, the players giving money back to the owners. They had the whole escrow situation there. If that, of course, didn't happen, the cap would, be higher to this day. But adding on here, that's another story for another day. The Oilers also have to sign defenseman Evan Bouchard to a likely 8-year deal starting in 2025-26, and that could also be in the $10 million range if he has another 82-point season. But Draisaitl, who already has signed 2 Oilers contracts for a total of $78.2 million, which is just an absolute steal up to this point, is first up to bat. And of course, in the bottom half here, you can see sort of some comparisons of the biggest contracts in the league. I got guys like AM34, $13.25 million, Nathan MacKinnon, who himself was in Draisaitl's situation here, where he made far less than he ultimately deserved, got his payday. McDavid, of course, $12.5 million. Artemi Panarin, $11.64 million. And then finally, Elias Pettersson, $11.6 in the playoffs. He certainly didn't play like an $11.6 million player, but who am I to say here? But that's really it for the Draisaitl extension talk. Of course, not much will happen until it officially happens. All the speculation, all the news will come to an abrupt stop, I should say, once it finally happens here. But very encouraging news if you're an Oilers fan or if you're a Draisaitl fan too. Just expecting the guy to get his well-deserved paycheck, his well-deserved upgrade there on a contract. But lastly here, not so much news, but it's more so just the thoughts and feelings regarding the Oilers dressing room when it comes to Mattias Ekholm about his 2 teammates, Leon and Connor. And, there's some criticism that Draisaitl and McDavid received for not producing in the last games of the Cup final. I believe it's games 6 and 7 to be exact, and this is what he had to say. He said it was quite ironic because we had a guy who broke one of Wayne Gretzky's records in the playoffs for him to then be criticized for not delivering. Sure, I understand that he didn't score in the last 2 games or whatever it was, but we would never have been in the Stanley Cup final without those 2 to criticize when we were 1 goal away from overtime in Game 7, like extremely close to, tying the game if Sergei Bobrovsky wasn't doing Sergei Bobrovsky things. And you have to realize that we faced a good team that was simply a bit better when it mattered. Of course, Mattias Ekholm, not one to shy away from an interview. Of course, being Swedish, tremendous, interview skills when it comes to that. I'm rather impressed. And there's also been, some multiple interviews with him, not just about, Edmonton, but like Nashville in the past and how, the 2 teams compared. But when it comes to that, Mattias Ekholm, a cornerstone on the Oilers' blue line along with Evan Bouchard, and I'm more than excited to see those 2 continue to do those things on the blue line, of course, with Leon and Connor heading into the season. But when it comes to that, that's all we have for today. Make sure to subscribe here to the channel and have yourselves a great day. I'm Matt.